This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke, and joining me for another of our special episodes featuring leading personalities from around the world and around the game. And this week we speak to the man in the hot seat, Bill Goren, who is the Chief Executive Officer of USA Rugby. If you listen to Rugby Unity, you will know that we are fascinated by the development of the game in the USA and the plans for the game as we head to LA in 28, the World Cup in 2031 for the men and 33 for the women. And indeed, as announced last week, the All Blacks will take on the Springboks in Baltimore at the end of this year. So lots of rugby at the top level to talk about. But Bill, welcome to Rugby Unity. And as we do with these programs, we like to meet the person before we talk about the meat, I suppose, on the bones. So Bill Goren and the Bill Goren story, what is it?
I don't know if it's that exciting of a story. I'm Bill Goren, work for USA Rugby. I was previously with MLR, just kind of living and breathing rugby in the US for quite a bit of time now.
Okay. But you were born and raised where are you from Texas?
You want the whole story?
Yeah.
Small child. Born and raised in Texas. Moved to Washington State. If you're familiar with the landscape of the U.S., which is kind of on the other side. Grew up, went to high school, college there, and then started my sports career, which started in baseball. Worked for a couple of baseball teams, and then worked for a couple of NBA basketball teams, and then got into emerging sports, lacrosse, soccer, and rugby.
Okay. So with that and that background, what was it that attracted you to sport in the first instance? Because it clearly has been your path throughout your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I played sports, right? And just like any young individual, I wanted to be a professional athlete and realized I was not very good at a sport, or at least I wasn't good at the sports I was playing. So I chose to find another way in. I took an internship with a minor league baseball team and very quickly realized there's two sides of the business. There's the sport business, and there's a business of sports. And I was lucky enough to meet some really good, smart individuals on the sport side of the business that proved to me that I was not that guy. And so I got on the business side of it and was able to kind of hold my skills and make my way through the business side of sports.
And so, as you say, you were in lacrosse, baseball, other sports, but you found your way into the MLR a few years ago now. How was it that you found your way into rugby? And prior to getting involved in the game, did you have any exposure or any understanding of the sport?
Yeah, so I was working in more American traditional sports here with basketball and baseball, very well developed. And over tens, if not 100 years. The opportunity I got was to go to lacrosse, and I saw as an opportunity to do something a little different, an emerging sport that really wasn't established in the U.S., but different than rugby. Lacrosse, the best lacrosse in the world, is played right here. When I had the opportunity to look at rugby, and I had learned quite a bit about rugby and the business of rugby, it is worldwide a massive sport. The growth opportunities there, it just wasn't in the U.S. So I saw my opportunity getting with MLR and this opportunity with USA Rugby, the opportunity to really bring something to the U.S. that is popular around the world. The strategy is written, the path has been drawn. I just have to bring it in here. And then obviously, about the time I was coming in, we were talking about the World Cups anyway. All the opportunity was right there for it. So that's how I got into rugby.
Okay. So before we get into, the real detail of the game and all levels of the game, because I think people are fascinated by rugby in the United States. It's when you look at it historically, if we go all the way back to the first game that was played back in 1871, I think it was, between Harvard and McGill, in the northeast corner. So the sport has been there for many, many years, and clearly at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, it was moving pretty nicely, and the USA were the top team in the world, having won 2 Olympic gold medals. But then obviously American football took off. The NCAA was put in place, and the rest is history. So Just the fact that the sport has been around for so long, does that give any advantage, or is it a disadvantage, or did it wither away in those years as American football became so dominant?
No, I mean, I would say there is an advantage to it in the sense that obviously none of us is as old as you just said, but the game has been around a very long time. There's a lot of people who have been around the game for a long time, and they're ushering in the new generation of rugby here to the U.S. So we have a lot of amazing stakeholders, people that are passionate about the game and see the opportunity again. That's the massive advantage, is the fact that there are stakeholders that are driving this, that are, besides just me, driving the game of rugby in the U.S. The disadvantage is the history of the game, the way it has been structured for a really very long time, is much different than what U.S. sports is today. An entertainment product, in our landscape, athletes that make tens, if not $20 million a year. The disadvantage really is that we need to be able to augment what we had in the past and bring it into a modern day sports landscape here in the U.S., which is different than it is throughout the world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's unpick some of that as well. And if you could give us some sort of idea then about what does the youth high school rugby landscape look like?
Yeah. I mean, we relatively have a large number of athletes playing in the United States. I think we might be third in the world as far as number of athletes playing, but the size of our country is so big and so just it's massive. It's hard to travel. Relatively, we don't have enough athletes playing the game. It is very much a niche sport, an emerging sport here. We have a great system in place where we have leaders across the United States, one in each state. Basically, we call them a CIRO, and they run each state on the youth program. So we have programs throughout the United States. It's just very much a niche sport today, and we don't have enough athletes playing. That's my job, and the job of USA Rugby is to get more athletes touching the ball early. I think if you would talk to anyone about my age who played rugby, especially a number of the Eagles, and you said, hey, how did you get into the game? Where did you start playing rugby? Most of their stories would be, well, I went to college, I was done playing football, and I met a guy with this weird ball. And they said, hey, you know what you should do? You like to hit people, and you're a big guy. You should start hitting people, on a pitch. And that was typically the story here. Now, that worked, and it's still the path for some, but it worked for a very long time here in the U.S. But as the game has evolved, the athletes have evolved up. People across the world are playing. It's their first sport. It's the first time they touch a rugby ball. They're 5, 6, 7 years old. We are now in that evolution of trying to get a ball in the kids' hands and give them that first opportunity to develop that core skill set that is usually lost by the time you're 18 to 20 and you're touching. We're trying to get that get that with the kids earlier, both men and women, and both on a 7s of 15 landscape, just as early as we possibly can through a few programs.
So with those programs in each of the states, are there clubs, are there community-based clubs that are playing the game, or is it mainly being played for the kids through the schools, acknowledging that it is, still a very niche sport?
So it's a good question. I apologize too. I might just jump over stuff because I make the assumption you've already kind of understand the landscape, but this is a club sport here. It is community leaders that create a club throughout the U.S. and in their communities, and it's a club sport. This is not a middle school, high school sport in the U.S. It's something we're working towards, but where you get your exposure to the game is through that club landscape. Now, one of the things we're trying to do to make those changes and get it into the high schools is we've got a program called Imagine Rugby, where we go into middle schools and elementary schools, and we put a curriculum together for kids to get their first taste of rugby, right? So that they learn passing skills and just the basic rules of the game and how they can engage in the game, and then roll them into a club type program. But high school, as a high school varsity sport in the U.S., is something we're striving for.
Yeah. So how many kids in the USA would be enrolled in Imagine Rugby?
It's a broad number. I mean, I'd say over the last 3 years, through the PE programs, we have probably had about 500,000, 500,000 kids go through that program.
Okay, that's a solid
which is a
number.
large number.
Yeah.
Yes. Now converting them into
Yeah.
saying, okay, I like this game, and mom, dad, I want to figure out how to engage in that game. Where can I make that happen? That's the part we're still trying to solve today.
Okay. And what are your plans to try to solve that particular part of the pathway?
I think it's partially an implementation issue. Right now, it's a Imagine Rugby and USA Rugby driven program. What we really need to do is have those clubs that we were talking about before be the ones that are implementing this into the schools and the districts, because they're the next level and they're the contact person to play that game. Opposed to USA Rugby putting it in and me sitting in Denver, a program that's going on in Boise, Idaho. This is a much better way of allowing kids to find that next opportunity, is having someone in their community implementing the program.
It would seem, though, as we sort of ladder up to that next level, that college level, and interestingly, just the NCAA was founded, way back in the early 1900s to largely tidy up, what was a very dangerous American football sport at the time. But rugby never became an NCAA sport. Has that held back the development of the game?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has. While we have a lot of rugby in colleges across the U.S., it is typically a club sport within your college. And that does limit those opportunities for athletes who want to play rugby young and convert into a college athlete, where you don't have as many scholarships, as many resources, other high-level athletes playing the game. So, yeah, it has limited our growth. But I would say the structure we have in place around college today, where we have a large number of colleges that have rugby programs. We have D1A level rugby, which is probably your top tier college rugby programs. It's being developed and it's working across the U.S. But yeah, the NCAA status is something we're working very hard for, especially on the women's side. We are considered today an emerging sport for NCAA on the women's side of the game. That opportunity to become a school program with scholarships and everything it will advance our women's side drastically if we're able to get in front of that and make that happen.
I heard a story one day about, and again, this goes to this, the spread of rugby across colleges. That, as you say, it's played in a lot of colleges in a lot of places. It's a club sport driven by the different colleges, but a lot of people in the USA know about rugby, and if they didn't play it themselves, they know somebody who's played the game. So there are, over the years, been millions of people play rugby at the college level in the USA. How is it that that cohort of people who played it, love the game, that hasn't translated into greater success for the sport?
I mean, it's an interesting question because, yes, I would say millions of people know it, but we're just such a large country that that's a small portion of our people that actually have played the game. More or less, as you said, extend it to people who know somebody played the game or have seen the game, on TV. There's still a small portion who have actually interacted in the game. That's what we're trying to do. The second part is it's very easy to fall out of a game when there's not an option to play that game in your community. So growing the amount of clubs that we have on youth and high school, college, and senior club, which is adult level rugby, throughout the country allows people to stay in that game, engage in that game, and then hopefully as they become adults, get back to that game. But if you live in a community that doesn't really have it, or you're not really engaged in it with that community, you can see how it can fall off. It's not your everyday sport like the NFL that's on television constantly here, even though they only really play 16 or 18 games out of a year.
Yeah.
It is a constant message here. We're working to make it not only a constant message, that's going out of USA Rugby, but also just a constant message in your community that this is your community and this is your day.
Yeah. So to the women's game, obviously, the women in the US have had great success on the sevens circuit for many years. We have the wonderful, iconic, totemic Ilona Maher, who really is a personality that transcends not only rugby but sport more broadly. She's very, very well known in the US. The women's elite rugby competition is now being introduced, and as you say, the opportunity around the NCAA for women and the women's game becoming an NCAA sport. That seems to me to be quite an optimistic part of it, particularly as we work towards 2033, that the women's game could really thrive in North America.
Absolutely. It is, as we're talking, this is well, it's, a very old sport. It's relatively a young sport. So the rules that a lot of the countries have to adhere are the long lasting kind of opinions, they're different here. And the women's sport is alive and well here. And we can definitely see that grow very fast. Like you said, we have I would argue, the most popular, the most famous rugby player in the world. And 5 years ago, if you said, hey, the most famous rugby player in the world will be a female, everyone would be kind of surprised. And if he said it would be from the U.S., you'd be shocked, right? Yeah. A sport where, Ilona has been able to kind of thrive, and she has a number of teammates who are just as enthusiastic, likable, fun, energetic, all of that. Like, we have a great opportunity to grow the game, and the rules aren't written here like they are across the world that maybe men's 15 is what rugby really is. We're able to not rewrite our rules, but create our own rules around our women's sevens program. And our success in the Olympics with the bronze medal really showed that two things: that the women's sport can thrive, and that the Olympics is the biggest opportunity to get Americans who aren't engaged with the sport to engage with the sport. Because you're not going to root, maybe, like I watch curling a lot now, because I'm loving curling right now. But most Americans, I've never played curl or done curling. I don't know if you play curling or curl. But most Americans may not engage with rugby, but they turn on the Olympics and they root for the flag. And there we were having success in the Olympics wearing that flag. And that's how we were able to make a great stride in awareness just at the last Olympics. And now the next one's in America in 28. We feel like it's a great opportunity to put our game in front of a lot of new people.
So in terms then of getting the game in front of people through televisions, through mobile phones, how are you going with that at the moment, in terms of the various products that you have available? I understand that World Rugby has a deal with Paramount, CBS for World Rugby content. I think Six Nations might be on Peacock. I think Flow Rugby it's based, one of the streaming services there picks up the Prem, picks up Super Rugby. But just how easy is it to watch high quality rugby in the United States?
It's still a challenge. I mean, we're really proud of our CBS/Paramount deal that we have also for USA Rugby. And all of our matches are shown on Paramount, where you'll see some of the bigger matches as we get to World Cup showing up on the big broadcast. It's still a challenge, right? Because these are streaming networks that you have to be associated with. And you honestly, you have to go kind of find it, right? You're just not flipping your channels and seeing it. But we're working towards that with CBS to have some of our more high profile events, be it with USA Rugby or not, on big CBS, so that our fans can find it, or not even our fans, people who are not our fans, preferably find it and engage with our sport. Like you said, we've got NBC has their deal, CBS, Paramount has their deal, Flow has theirs, the Rugby Network, which is MLR's, and then Rugby Pass. You can find content on all of this, but you do have to find it still.
So how then do you capture the attention of the American sports fans when you consider the options that they have before them, whether it be the big four, the ice hockey, the football, the baseball, the basketball, but then you've now have this emerging tier of Major League Soccer, women's Major League Soccer, volleyball, women's ice hockey. Like that, it seems that professional sports, lacrosse, is expanding and exploding. And this is from afar. I just wonder why rugby hasn't been taken, or rugby hasn't been identified as a property that some of this huge private equity money might get after to help grow the sport, not only in North America, but take advantage of rugby's global reach.
Yeah, it's a noisy market, right? You just named off a tenth of our competition. And there's so much more. There's a professional frisbee league out there that I think is on a streaming channel. It's wild. It's not called frisbee, I don't think, but the frisbee guys are going to come after me now. No, I think it is a noisy market with a lot of different options. Our advantage is, like we said, it's a world sport like soccer was 25 years ago. The U.S., it was very much a niche sport in the U.S. They had a World Cup come. They had a professional soccer league come out of that. 25 years later, they're now, a legitimate sport here in the U.S. And MLS is a very real and driving league. But at the same time, it took 25 years. We're working to learn from all of those with our professional leagues here in the U.S., the content that they create, along with the content we create to capture those individuals. At the end of the day, we're trying to be as competitive as we possibly can with our marks on our jersey, so that people know that we're a winner. And the U.S., like it or not, they really like to be aligned with winners.
Right.
So we're thrilled to do that and have that challenge in front of us to go out and try to be the best we possibly can be. At the same time, making people aware and pulling them in through our athletes, like Ilona's just one, that engages people to make that connection and then follow us through. So we continue to build on it. Our massive advantage is that the Olympics in 28 and those 2 World Cups, there is a story behind why you should engage in our sport. And that's because we'll be representing the U.S. at the world's biggest stage, and that will be on U.S. soil.
What sort of responsibility do you think USA Rugby fans feel for having successful World Cups in 2031 and 2033? Is it likely that they might be the catalyst for more engagement, more involvement, that people feel that there is a responsibility to make sure that the US presents and produces high-quality World Cups?
Yes, I think our stakeholders, our fans today, the people that are engaged in the game, either in support of USA Rugby or playing the game, because of the community is so tight and so driven, and so, as you kind of pointed out, they have such a strong desire to make this sport known throughout the U.S. I think they feel a lot of pressure to make this a success. We all feel a lot of pressure to make this a success. If it is, it's going to be the biggest World Cup in the history of world rugby, financially. And so we all feel a lot of pressure, because at the end of the day, we know what the U.S. market could be, and we know what the lasting effect of these successful World Cups will be. So we all feel so much pressure and excitement about doing that. And you can kind of feel it and see it. And, we're constantly talking about it.
What is the plan for North America in the lead up to the 2031 and 2033 Rugby World Cups? Clearly, World Rugby are investing in matches like the one we're going to see in Baltimore later this year. But what other elements of what are the other elements of the World Rugby's significant investment? I think it's $250 million US is the figure that's been floated.
Yeah. Well, that, like you said, that's a key cornerstone to what we're all trying to do, is bring high level rugby to the U.S. and make U.S. rugby high level and start engaging more fans, and then managing that data. So creating more data and allowing us to communicate more with those fans, to bring them along this path with us and tell that story. We don't want to just come in, have an event, walk away, and not you engage with those fans as we get closer and closer to that World Cup. So it's really important to have a real good data strategy towards marketing that World Cup and both of those World Cups in 31, 33. It's also the grassroots side of it. We are roughly, let's say, 100,000 athletes playing the game today on the grassroots side. We want to be 5 times. We really want to be 10 times that, but trying to stretch goals, but be realistic, 5 times that, having 500,000 athletes playing the game is key for us to be able to get to that World Cup, both of them, and be able to kind of like see that World Cup at that moment really be the catalyst for growth. If we're still sitting where we're at today with 100,000 athletes, it won't be that catalyst for growth that it should be. We need to have a large number. Working with those youth in high schools, as we said, getting those high schools to adopt it as a varsity sport, getting colleges to get more mature, and having more top level colleges. We have a large number of colleges across the U.S. We have a much smaller group that are top level, full-time environment, driving their athletes to be they possibly can, to be able to produce Eagles, which is, our national team. That's what we call them, Eagles. So working through that. And then also the people that give back, those ones that are engaged in the senior club level, we can't forget about them. There's a number of people that come out of high school or college. They're not going to go on and play for the Eagles, or they might, who knows, but they want to still engage with the game, and they still want to be able to play the game and enjoy the game at whatever level they're at. That's what senior club really brings. And those are truly the people that get, that love the game. I mean, they're playing after they're done with high school or college, and they're really engaged in the game. They're the ones that are going to come back and give back to USA Rugby. If it's not their time, it's their financial support. So it's all appreciated, but we really just have to grow.
We're not talking rugby, we're building it. Rugby Unity.
Do you understand some of the views from around the world of rugby that, the USA, it's just too hard. It's just too big. It's too complex. It's never going to work. Look what they've done over the years. There's been, so many false starts in terms of trying to establish professional competitions. It's all too hard. Why are we bothering, investing $250 million in a market that will never love us?
Well, I wouldn't have taken the job if I believed that or understood it. No, I mean, I can understand where they come from. But all of that is, to me, a lot of that is not understanding the U.S. Looking from the outside and saying it's too hard, it's too big, it's failed before. But on the inside, you see a number of examples of how it was successful, how sports have grown, not rugby, but, well, yes, and rugby, but other sports have grown and grabbed a piece of the United States, if not at the financial side, the heart and strings of the United States when it comes to Olympic sports. So, yeah, I can see why others would say it's a massive challenge and maybe a challenge too hard to achieve. But I really feel like, and everyone that's on our team really feels like we've got the pieces to be able to grow. It just takes laser focus and a lot of drive to get there.
And $250 million sounds like a lot, but it doesn't sound like very much when you consider the work program that you just outlined.
It absolutely is not enough money. We can always take more. No, that $250 million is stretched over bringing events to the U.S., delivering a World Cup, a high performance budget, a grassroots initiative, the staffing and structure you need to do all that stuff. That money gets stretched pretty thin, pretty fast. While it sounds like a huge amount of money, we are managing our budgets and our expenses tighter than we ever have because we're trying to stretch those dollars to make the impact that it really needs to. Again, that World Cup could be the largest revenue driver ever for World Rugby. And so we feel a lot of ownership of trying to put our money and our efforts in the opportunities that will do so. We don't want to fail.
Now, you were involved in Major League Rugby, and we've had sort of the next iteration of Major League Rugby. I think we now have 6 teams remaining in the competition. There's now a collective bargaining agreement that's been struck with the players. Where are we at with Major League Rugby? Because, again, those who would be cynical about it, just say, well, here, look at this. This is just another example of it. We can't succeed there. It just won't work.
Yeah, I see that, and like I lived it, right? I was there for over five years or 5 seasons with them, through COVID, through the comeback from COVID. We're up to 13 teams at one point. Yeah, from the outside, I could understand how somebody would say, yeah, see, this is proving it works. That's not, if talking to some of the people from MLR, that's not what happened. There's just been this natural kind of progression of growth and then pull back. And I still believe that all the owners, even the ones that left, are very much behind the success of MLR, and they do have a plan and a structure to be able to grow and not only support the teams that they have, but grow back to where they were and grow past where they were. It is kind of this ebb and flow, that the challenges of how many athletes you have in the U.S. that can play on those teams versus international athletes. As you said, a collective bargaining agreement. There's just a time where there's going through a little bit of change, but at the same time, USA Rugby still invested in MLR. We have a team that is USA Rugby focused in the Anthem. We believe in the product, and we believe in what they do to develop athletes on other teams, not only just the Anthem.
All right, so you're quite optimistic that this year we'll see a higher quality competition. Do you believe that the current sort of 6-team format is sustainable, particularly leading towards 28, 31 and 33, that there's enough support there to sustain professional rugby in the US?
I think there's enough support to sustain the 6 teams, but I think they would also say they want to grow. They don't want to be at 6 teams next year or by 28, 31, or 33. So there is the desire to grow, to have more. For us, at MLR, it's more content, right? Right now they're at 10-game seasons, 6 teams. They really want to, at one point they were at 13 teams, 16-game seasons. So they want to grow, get past that and exceed that. It's not the desire to be where they're at today, but at the same time, I think you're going to see a high level of competition, and you're going to see a new kind of level to their product. And when I say that, they've got some interesting things they're doing on the broadcast side, a delivery method to the fans. I think they're doing more in their stadiums than they ever have. So I feel like from a delivery perspective, they've got a lot of good plans, and they've got some good leadership over there that will allow them to really kind of push forward.
Yeah, I noticed that the new Californian team are going to play in multiple venues across the year. They're sort of going to be a Californian team and be on the road, which is an interesting idea.
It is. I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea. We talk about how big the United States is. The United States is huge. California by itself is huge. To be able to try to take over all of California, which runs basically, the whole West Coast, is a massive undertaking. They're great guys. I don't know if you know Adam Fryer, but he's driving the ship over there. He's a great operator. He's a great visionary. So I know that they probably have some good plans to be able to capture all of California. But it's a huge undertaking. I think I'm excited to see what they would do. And then, while we say that, they combined with the San Diego Legion, the LA team to combine with the San Diego team. So they've already established San Diego. They've already established LA. The frontier really is Northern California, the San Diego Bay Area.
Well, we wish them all the luck. And yes, I do know Adam Fryer, and he's just the man for the job over there. Let's hope that we do see progress. We do see improvement, and we do see the health of the MLR continue to grow over this next period of time. So we've obviously had the success of the All Blacks in San Diego with Fiji, the couple of matches between the All Blacks and Ireland in Chicago. Take us through that big match in Baltimore, All Blacks versus the Springboks as the fourth of the greatest rivalry test series. It certainly promises a lot.
It does promise a lot. I mean, it's going to be a huge event. I mean, when the All Blacks come and they play a game like this, that's a sellout building. It's going to be it's going to be a great showcase for what rugby is in the U.S., what it can do from an attendance perspective, what it can do from an excitement perspective. We're thrilled to have the match. It was a lot of work bringing that match here. But obviously, the U.S. promises to be able to drive this level of match, as well as, having Springbok and having the All Blacks really buy into what our vision is for the U.S. So when it comes to the U.S., all of the unions are supportive. There's not one union out there saying, I want to see USA Rugby fail, or I want to see the U.S. World Cups fail. They might question, will it be successful? But nobody's trying to see us fail. And a number of the different unions, including the two you just mentioned, are going to put their money where their mouth is and come to the U.S. and help drive the awareness of the game. And so we couldn't be more excited about what it will do for our marketplace. Obviously, last year we talked about the All Blacks playing Ireland, sellout building there in Chicago, massive event. And then we continue to fill it year over year to build that consistency that we haven't necessarily had prior to this.
How big a brand is the All Blacks in North America? They are our biggest brand as a global sport. How well known are the All Blacks in North America?
Well, they're annoyingly known. I'd rather people say USA Rugby than All Blacks, of course. It's a little annoying, but they're very well known. Non-rugby people know All Blacks. And often when I say I'm with USA Rugby, they're like, great. Hey, I know the All Blacks. Yeah, right. That's great. No, but it's, that is a world brand. Well, when you see some of these other countries come in, their fans will travel throughout the United States. The people of that ethnicity at times will come in and do that. The All Blacks crossover all. Yeah. And anybody who just wants to see a great event want to be part of an All Blacks event. So, they are very popular. Yeah. But one day, hopefully, you're asking All Blacks how USA Rugby is saying, and it's a positive thing.
Well, I'm sure. Let's hope. What about the Springboks? Are they as well known as the All Blacks?
I would say in the U.S. probably not as well known, but that's a world level team as well. Anyone who has any kind of connection with rugby, they're well aware of them as well. That's what it is. It's two great teams coming together. And the awareness is high on both teams. Obviously, the All Blacks are just in a league by themselves, unfortunately, for the rest of us, because we really would like to all be seen that way. Yeah. But it's gonna be a great event, and it's our job is to take that event and have a long lasting effect by pulling those fans into the game, introducing them to USA Rugby, getting them to play the game or support the game.
Interestingly, one of the correspondents, we have a part of our program here at Rugby Unity called The Third Voice, which is the participation of rugby fans around the world. And when we were talking about the match in Baltimore, someone who'd actually been to the stadium and been to the city of Baltimore was questioning whether or not you can create a genuine rugby experience around that stadium and that downtown, and that it might not feel like a rugby event. What would you say to that?
I would say, with those two teams, that energy and that excitement, the pomp and circumstance will happen wherever they show up. Nothing against the city of Baltimore. The Baltimore is strategically placed that anyone from New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. can come into Baltimore to be part of that event. It was a very smart move not to go on any one of those edges, but actually kind of go right in the middle. Yeah. In Baltimore, to be able to pull from all those cities, including the Baltimore area themselves. So it was very smart, and I do believe they'll be able to bring that energy here. Tailgating is a huge thing for us, right? And in Chicago, you saw them just take over parking lots. You're going to see the same thing in Baltimore. It'll be an all-day event where hopefully everyone has a great time, and not too good of a time, but a great time.
Well, let's hope. And I'm sure it will be a great success, because as you say, the population density, the interest in and around the sport, I'm sure it will be a great occasion for the sport. And congratulations to everybody who's involved for setting that up. Now, Another sort of key theme over the sort of first 8 months of Rugby Unity has been the development of rugby in South America and the leadership of Argentina and Super Rugby Americas. I think everyone looks to that as a model of it's working, it's well structured, and I'm sure you look on longingly around the structures that it has around club, from juniors through the amateur game, connecting up into the professional sport. They do, in South America, seem to have got their act together. But what about the connection between North and South America? What can you tell us about the way you are working together to develop the game in that part of the world?
Yeah, you said it. They have built something down there that is working. It's something we're all looking towards and say, figuring out what they do, what works in the U.S. and what doesn't work in the U.S. They're all great people, every union down there. We do work with them, but it's more of a best practice and sharing of information and discussion and seeing how we can connect on common ground often. But, again, we try to take what they do and adapt it to, our landscape and when I say landscape, I don't mean just the size of the U.S., but the landscape of the game in the U.S. and the other sports in the U.S., which is very challenging. But yeah, no, we look towards that quite a bit. Every union. I mean, anytime we travel, we try to pick apart each one's successes and challenges and figure out how do we make ourselves better. Always.
And the national team, obviously you have qualified for 2027. Congratulations that the USA will be at the World Cup here in Australia. That's fantastic. Give us the story at the moment about where the development of the Eagles is at this point in time.
Yeah, so we qualified. We're thrilled to do that. The minute we did qualify, it's turn the corner and stare right at 27. And what do we need to do? We work pretty much daily on making sure our athletes are prepared and ready. Our schedule in 26 and the first half of 27 is really prepared to build it, to peak towards that World Cup and have a great showing there. It's obviously challenging trying to assemble, like in the U.S., our men's 15s program, they play professionally throughout MLR or maybe throughout the world. And we come together to practice and play. And then they disperse again. Getting more time together is the key for us. Being able to assemble our squad and practice and do 2 or 3 games in a row is the key to our success. And so we're working towards pulling that together.
Are you making progress?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't qualify in last World Cup, and then we qualified for this one. So I call that progress. We need to get better, faster, but we have a great squad. Scott Lawrence, who is our head coach, is putting together. Well, he has a great coaching staff. He's always adding. He's always focused, and he's looking at the athletes we have. The athletes we have today are probably the ones that are representing us in 27, and so it's just putting those pieces together and having the right game plan. So yeah, I feel like every time we take the pitch, we have a goal. And that goal might not be everything that everybody else wants to be, but it's either we want to see teamwork, we want to see a certain style of play. He doesn't want me to say everything. But we do have a game plan and we're seeing a lot of progress. And kind of behind Scott, we're going to move forward right now, 27 World Cup, and then we've already qualified for 31 as well.
Yeah, very true. So, but you mentioned that, the United States, the people of the United States like winners. When the team qualified for the World Cup, was that news more broadly across the United States? And how difficult is it to retain interest when the team is, it's clearly not a top tier team. It's not among the best teams in the world. How much does that impede the growth and support of the USA Eagles? Yeah,
I mean, was it broadly known? I think within our community, within rugby, the rugby landscape, very excited. People were very excited for Scott, and kind of the ones who were really behind Scott really wanted to push that forward. We're very excited. We're really happy that we qualified and moved forward. I still think we're a top tier team, but Yes, there's challenges there to keep people's interest. But as you said, is there growth? I think that's what the American fans are looking for, is like, is there a story? Are we growing towards something? And we are. We're growing towards something. And I think that's how we'll keep people engaged and pushing forward.
So I've been running this theory, and this is the world according to me, that there is opportunity perhaps to work with the NFL. So the NFL's growth plans are very much, they've hit a ceiling in North America, and they are doing everything that they possibly can to grow outside of North America. And to watch Bad Bunny at the end of the halftime show mention every country in Central and South America, to call that out specifically. We've now had it confirmed that the Chargers are going to be playing the 49ers here in Australia, and then you have games in Madrid and Germany and England and all the rest of it. Flag football is now an Olympic sport, and flag football has the potential to grow internationally as a sport to be played, whereas NFL is going to be much more difficult to turn it into a participation sport in any other parts of the world. Can we work together with flag football? Can rugby go to the NFL and say, you want to grow, you want to go to every country in the world with this version of your sport? We can help you. We've got the playing sheds, we've got the fields, we've got the administration, we've got everything that you need to grow. And at the same time, you could help us grow in North America. Hi, Roger Goodell, sitting down. Here I am. Brett Robinson walks into Roger Goodell and says, Roger, here's a deal for you. What's Roger going to say? Well, first of all, is he going to get a meeting, and would Roger listen to it?
Yes, we could get a meeting with the NFL. Roger, I don't know what Roger would say, but I would say I've got a lot of relationships throughout the NFL, especially at the league office. And their number one driver is spread the game of football, right? And I don't think it's necessarily through crossover sports with rugby. But at the same time, I understand your theory. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one, because I don't want to say anything negative. I just know their focus is to get behind the game of football and drive the game of football. The flag football program, getting in the Olympics, is to expose the world to the game of football, not necessarily help expose the world to the game of rugby. But at the same time, we're always open. So Roger, if you're listening, give me a call. No, there's a good opportunity there with football. But I would tell you, from an American's perspective, we hear it all the time. Hey, why don't you just get football players to play rugby? Yeah. And yes, we have some of the best athletes in the world. But if they're not playing the game early enough, the transfer opportunity is much more challenging, especially on a 15 side. And so pulling football players or crossing with football is not always the answer necessarily, but we're always out there looking for the opportunity, not only on the athlete side, but on the business side.
Bill, just as a final point, just a message to the rugby world. We do have listeners in about 137 countries at last calculation, I think, a couple of days ago. I just had a look at the numbers, which is great. So you are speaking to people who care about the game, because the simple mission of Rugby Unity is, how do we help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world? That's why we make the program. It's why we pursue the program. It's why we have conversations like this one. What message do you have from USA Rugby to the world? And indeed, what can rugby people around the world do to support the growth and the prosperity of the game in the United States of America?
I think, be honest, Rugby Unity, exactly what you are is what we really need to be. My job is to align the U.S. behind a message of driving rugby forward, right? On the pro side, the high-performing side, so our Eagles, the grassroots side, pulling everyone's great efforts into one line and driving forward. The closer we can get, the more successful we can be. Across the world, again, get behind the game of rugby and support it the way you can to drive it forward. We're all challenged. USA Rugby might be emerging when it comes to rugby, but every union, maybe not the All Blacks, but every union is challenged, right? And instead of saying why it's not successful, let's try to see how we can be successful together. and pull together. Your questions about South America, those are great questions because it's about coming together and pushing the game forward, not trying to just beat each other. Now, we do want to win on the pitch, but we all want to see the game to grow. So put your efforts in growing the game, support each other, and drive the participation and what's valuable about our game. I would say in the U.S., we have great values when it comes to the game of rugby, but the values get lost at times. The values of camaraderie and inclusion and leadership, all of those go away at times. And we need to make sure at the end of the day, that's one of our major focuses, because that's what's great about our game, not just here, but all around the world. And let's keep those in mind.
Yeah, no, here, totally agree with you. And again, I think that point that you make around individual responsibility, because, often it's, what's World Rugby going to do? What's USA Rugby going to do? What's New Zealand Rugby going to do? What's Rugby Australia going to do? It's sort of like, well, they can do what they can do, but the game will never realise its potential unless people do something. Now, that could be as simple as getting along to your old club, going and running the sideline, cooking a barbecue, washing the jerseys, whatever it might be. Our unique model of community to professionalism does require people. And I also have a bit of a theory around baby boomers, who have been busy with their work. They're now going to retire. If they're looking for something to do, why not get back to your rugby club and help to grow it around the world? So listen, Bill, you've been very generous with your time. You have possibly the world's busiest job. And I wish you all the best. And I know many of our listeners will wish you all the best as well in your endeavours. It's a huge task. It's an exciting task. And really, I think if we can crack North America in a substantive way, from youth all the way through to professional and everything that joins in between it in that incredibly large market, it's got to be a great thing for rugby. And as you say, it's alignment, it's unity that's going to get us there over time. So best of luck with everything ahead of you in the days, weeks and months ahead. So thank you very much for joining us on Rugby Unity today.
Thank you.
So there you go, people. Bill Goren, the CEO of USA Rugby. He is the boy with the wheelbarrow in front of him, isn't he? He's got the job in front of him. What a big task. But there's clarity there. And again, I think to Bill's point around focus and shape and really alignment, getting people working together, there's a clear plan all the way from the grassroots all the way to the elite. And it really is just about, working hard every day. And to people listening in the USA, we do have a number of people listening in the United States. Get involved. Give Bill a hand. It sounds like what is needed is more participation across across the game, and give Adam Fryer a hand in California as well. So because we do want to see the game thrive. So anyway, very generous of Bill to give up that much of his time today, and thank you for coming back once again as we continue this sort of exploration of where the game is in different parts of the world. I do hope you are enjoying the conversations, because it does help us to understand just exactly where we're at, what we need to do to improve, and how do we come together to help secure the future prosperity of rugby union around the world. Thanks also for your engagement on social media. We've had some monstrous days last week and the week before. My God, fantastic. But keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming, because it keeps the conversation going and the engagement is fantastic. So please like, subscribe, share, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, social media, wherever it is that you are, please get involved in the game and let's really drive towards a great success here in Australia in 2027 and the Nations Championship this year. How good is that going to be? Lots of games being announced and certainly looking forward to that. But for the moment, please, people, be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke and it's bye for now.